Welcome miners! In this video we're going to be diving deep into the Warthog Auto Shotgun, one of the most versatile weapons in Ingie's arsenal, and whether you're a greenbeard or a more seasoned engineer, this guide will help maximize the potential of the Warthog Auto Shotgun. We'll start by breaking down the basics of the Warthog, its stats, its strengths, and its ideal use cases. Then we're going to explore some different builds for the Warthog, but that's not all. We're also going to be covering all of the overclocks for the Warthog, and detailing how each of them change the weapon stats, and also how I like to build each of them. So grab your gear, load up your shotgun, and let's get to work. Rock and stone, brothers and sisters. Yeah! First up, let's go over the pros and the cons of the Warthog Auto Shotgun. For the pros of the Warthog Auto Shotgun, this one does good damage per shot. It can actually one-shot glyphids on pretty much any difficulty, depending on how you want to build it, as long as you hit headshots. Body shots are a little bit more difficult, but certain overclocks can actually do this. It is a very versatile weapon where it kind of works in just about every sort of scenario, and it works really well in combination with any of the secondary weapons that Ingie has access to. It's also fairly easy to use. Most people get the hang of a shotgun down pretty fast, and in this game they actually gave shotguns pretty good range, so you don't have to be using this at very close range, which is awesome. I always love that in games. The major cons to the Warthog, though, that you're probably going to run into are that it does have short range, or at least short effective range. I did say it had long range, and it does have that, but it's inconsistent at longer ranges. It's much better at close range, as you'd kind of expect from a shotgun. It can also run into ammo issues as well. Starting out, you only have 90 shells in total, not counting the 6 that are in the gun base, and you can go through that ammo pretty quick, especially considering Ingie's secondaries don't usually have the most amount of ammo. There are some exceptions to that. Let's go over the non-overclocked build for Ingie's Warthog, and for this I'm going to be using the site Karl.gg. If you want to do some theory crafting, this site is fantastic. I'll try to link it down in the description below. First up, in Tier 1 we have two options of either faster rate of fire or magazine size. Both of these are really good for the Warthog. I tend to go with faster rate of fire to make the Warthog feel a little bit snappier between shots. If you don't like that and you like the larger mag size, you can absolutely go for that, though. I know plenty of people that enjoy both of these. In Tier 2, you also have three really good options, where you have increased ammo size, which gives you 42 more shells, you have loaded shells, which give you 2 more pellets per shot, and you have the choke, which reduces your base spread by 50%. Generally, I'll go with ammo here, but if you want a more consistent shotgun, and a shotgun that can kill big enemies a lot quicker, then go with the extra pellets, and if you really feel like you need long range, then I would suggest try out the choke. Choke's kind of an awkward one because I find the other two to be a little bit better, but choke can actually still be really nice. It's kind of a shame that it's on this tier and not the tier below, otherwise that would be a more fun choice to pick. In Tier 3 we also have three really good options, where we have the recoil dampener to reduce recoil, the quick fire ejector to decrease the reload time, or the high capacity magazine to give us 2 more shells. Generally I'll go with the high capacity magazine here and go up to 8 shells in the shotgun. In Tier 4 we either have armor breaking or more damage. The Warthog is a little bit weird with the armor breaking, and really only 1 or 2 of its overclocks can really take advantage of the actual armor breaking that it has. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Damage is generally better though, because this is 1 more damage per pellet. So you go from 7 damage to 8 damage, and you are still firing out 8 pellets, at least if you build like this. If you're going with extra pellets, then you're actually firing out 10 pellets. But at this point, you do have enough to one-shot headshot grunts on any difficulty. You actually have that before this, but just barely. So this one gives you a little bit more damage and damage per second towards bigger enemies, which is pretty nice. And then in Tier 5, this is going to be the major thing that changes up your shotgun. You either have turret whip or minor adjustments. Minor adjustments is the more straightforward of the two, but if you want objectively the better option, then turret whip is better in almost every scenario, since turret whip allows you to shoot your turrets, and this makes your turret fire off a supercharged shot that does extra damage, has AoE damage, has armor breaking, and has stun on it, or has increased stun on it, depending on how you build your turret. And this also has fear on it, and it can inflict friendly fire damage. This also doesn't just work on your turrets, but every Ingie's turret. Any turret-related overclock or perk all work on every single turret, so whether you're running 1 turret, 2 turrets, or whether you have a full team of Ingies running a bunch of turrets, this one will still work and give you more damage. This is generally the better way to build it, but if you like taking minor adjustments and you just want a full auto shotgun, I can totally understand that, because I tend to use that because I find the fill to be a little bit better. So what secondary should you take with the Warthog Auto Shotgun? Well, all the secondaries can be pretty good. The grenade launcher can be pretty decent for dealing high damage and dealing with crowds. The breach cutter is fantastic at dealing with things at close range, but it does limit your overall range since the shotgun doesn't have super long range. And then the shard diffractor kind of makes up for all the weaknesses that the shotgun actually has. So I would say the shard diffractor is probably going to be the easiest one to use. Although, if you don't have that one unlocked, the other 2 options are really good too. A non-overclocked shard diffractor I like to build like this, and then I tend to just use the shard diffractor basically as the minigun. Then I'll use the shotgun for anything at close and medium range, and use the shard diffractor out to long range. It's also still pretty good at crowd control and just a good general purpose weapon. And here's my typical build that I run with the grenade launcher non-overclocked. just giving me some more AoE damage if you want to run that. And here's my typical non-overclocked breach cutter build that also works really well at close range, and this can be extremely strong in like dreadnought missions where you don't really need to be fighting at super long range. Let's move over to the overclocks that we got available for the Warthog Auto Shotgun, and we'll go with the secondary for each of these two that I enjoy.
We got some iron here!
Our very first clean overclock is called Stunner. Stunner makes it so that you have an increased chance of stunning enemies than you otherwise would, as well as you actually get 30% more damage whenever you're fighting an enemy that is stunned. You don't have to be the one that stuns this, your turrets can actually stun it, so I would recommend taking the stuns with turrets. I'm going to be running the same build that I did previously with this one, so faster rate of fire, more ammo, larger mag size, more damage, and then the turret whip. Turret whip is really good on this one because it has an increased chance to stun enemies, so that's pretty nice, and it makes it so you can do a little bit more damage. This one has never really been one of my favorite overclocks, but it always has been a pretty solid overclock for the Warthog. It's generally one of the stronger ones that it does have access to, but definitely one of the more basic ones. For this, I decided to take Hyper Propellant for the grenade launcher, and I built it like this, and Hyper Propellant kind of has been fixed. So armor breaking is mostly working with it, sort of now. There's not really a great option in tier 3 with it, funny enough. And fire actually does reduce its damage now, rather than what it did before, where it just added more damage onto it, which was the better option. I also don't know if the randomized damage in tier 4 has been fixed with that one. It might have, it might not. There was a lot of issues with Hyper Propellant and a lot of things that it kind of worked with and kind of didn't work with. So feel free to modify this. Main things that you want to go for are definitely the ammos in tier 1 and 2, and then the damage in tier 5. You could still go with the fire in tier 3 if you're taking this on a robot mission, though. It's really strong then. Our second clean overclock for the Warthog Auto Shotgun is lightweight magazines. This increases your overall ammunition by 18, as well as it gives you a faster reload speed by 0.4 seconds. This is actually really nice for the Warthog, and I should go over one trick that you could do with the Warthog. This one exploits it the best, but any of them work really well, and that's that you can reload cancel the Warthog Auto Shotgun. You're likely going to see that in quite a bit of the background footage that we have here, where anytime that you go to reload the shotgun, as soon as you load the actual magazine into the shotgun, then you can actually skip the rest of the animation by pickaxe canceling just by tapping your pickaxe button, putting it away, and you'll be right back to fire. This actually increases your reload speed by quite a bit with the Warthog, and it does make it so this overclock in particular is really strong with that. This is the build I like going with the lightweight magazines, and this is going with faster rate of fire in tier 1, so I can shoot a little bit quicker, more pellets in tier 2. We don't really need the extra ammo in this one, so we might as well go with the extra damage. Both of them are really good, though. If you want to go with more ammo, you absolutely can, and that's pretty fun. Going with the larger mag size in tier 3, more damage in tier 4, and then turret whip in tier 5, so that I can actually shoot the turrets and do more damage with it. This is usually my go-to comfort pick for the Warthog Auto Shotgun. It's just nice. Extra ammo and faster reload speed is great on every weapon. Warthog is no exception to that, especially since, in my opinion, it could use a little bit more ammo. This one, also being a clean overclock that kind of does everything well with the Warthog, makes it so you can take this with whatever secondary that you would like. For me personally, I decided to go with Inferno Breach Cutter, and this is the build that I decided to run with it. Pretty standard Breach Cutter rounds here. You could go with the longer duration in tier 1 too. That's pretty nice. I like the bigger mag size just so I can shoot this out more often, just in case I need to clear up crowds. Next overclock is our one and only balanced overclock that we have currently for the Warthog. This is Magnetic Pellet Alignment, which this one increases your weak spot damage by 30%. It also reduces your base spread by 50%, so you're a lot more accurate at longer ranges, but it does reduce your rate of fire slightly. This isn't such a huge downgrade to the rate of fire, but it does make it more noticeable than some of the other shotgun overclocks. The way I build this one is the same build that I was running previously on lightweight magazines, so I'm running increased rate of fire in tier 1. I would highly recommend that one on this particular build, so that you go up to pretty much a normal rate of fire or slightly above average rate of fire. It does help quite a bit. Increased pellets in tier 2, but ammo is also pretty good in tier 2. Choke is not really the best with this one. I've tried that before, and I honestly don't notice that much of an increase in accuracy at longer ranges. The increased accuracy that this one gets is already pretty good, so usually I end up going with extra pellets so I can just do more damage at those longer ranges. Increased magazine in tier 3, but all of them are good in tier 3. More damage, and then turret whip once again. This one's actually really easy to hit turrets at very long range with. This one's also fantastic and pairs really well with anything as a secondary weapon. I decided to pair it once again with the Shard Diffractor, and for this I took Overdrive Booster. Overdrive Booster is technically an unstable overclock, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically a clean overclock because it doesn't actually come with any downside to the Shard Diffractor until you want to use it. And even then, the only real downside is that you have to use all of your magazine when you're firing it, which you probably will be using this against large targets, so that's not such a big deal. And you're also locked in place, which if you picked a good position to fight from, also isn't really that much of a downside. Our next overclock is an unstable one called Cycle Overload. This one's a super fun overclock. This one increases your rate of fire and increases your damage per pellet, but it does reduce your reload speed, which doesn't really matter if you learn to reload cancel because it's almost as fast as the regular shotgun, and it does increase your base spread. So shotgun is only really to be used at close and medium range. It doesn't work very well at long range. This one is the first one that I do really like building with the increased rate of fire in tier 5, even though I would say turret whip is still a better option for this. I still really like the really high rate of fire and just using this and mag dumping it at very close range. So once again, faster rate of fire in tier 1, extra ammo in tier 2. I'll take this unless I'm going on a dreadnought mission, then I'll usually take extra pellets. Larger mag size in tier 3, increased damage in tier 4, and then the minor adjustments in tier 5. So I have a full auto shotgun that shoots very fast, does really high damage per second. But the downside to this one is that you can run out of ammo really quick. It's also not particularly great on big open caves, especially if there's a lot of ranged enemies. Then this one is going to kind of struggle. But if you're just fighting regular grunts and you're in a small cave, this one can be really, really good. It's also pretty good on dreadnought missions just for chunking them too, which I enjoy. Secondaries, also up to you, whatever you would like to take with this one. Long range can be a really good option, so if you want to take the Shard Diffractor, I won't blame you for that, especially with something like efficiency tweaks where you get more ammo. That one is really good. For me personally, I decided to go with RJ250 compound, and I built it like this, so then I can have fire on it. This does really well against crowds too, and I can use this as a mobility tool to get away if I need to. Can be pretty nice in certain situations, especially if we do get a larger cave. I can at least fling myself closer to the enemies, so then I can mag dump them with the shotgun. Our next overclock is mini shells. Mini shells is an unstable overclock that gives you 78 more maximum ammo, so you get a lot more shells with this. You also get a larger mag size by +6, and you also get half the amount of recoil. The main downside to this one is that you can no longer stun enemies, which is kind of a bummer for the Warthog, and you also lose out on 2 damage per pellet. That is actually a decent amount of damage that you're losing out on. So for this one, I would highly recommend that you take damage in tier 4 and pellets in tier 2. That does kind of help. It makes it so you can at least still one-shot regular grunts. You're still going to kill big enemies a bit slower with this, but generally the extra ammo does kind of even this out. So you get a kind of slower time to kill, and maybe a little bit less consistent time to kill, but you do get more ammo overall, and sometimes that feels really nice with the shotgun. So I'm sure you've seen this build before since it's similar to what we've been running. So increased rate of fire in tier 1, extra pellets in tier 2, larger mag size in tier 3, more damage in tier 4, and then turret whip in tier 5. This one's actually pretty good for turret whip because I tend to run out of sentry gun bullets before I run out of shotgun shells with this one, at least assuming that I remember to do that. You could run minor adjustments with this one, and it can be a pretty fun shotgun to be using at very close range against smaller enemies. So a decent overclock, but you might want to take a secondary that does some more high damage. For this, I actually took Spinning Death with the Breach Cutter, which is a very fun overclock that can be used at pretty close range. It's really good for cutting off areas, and it can also be pretty good for rezzing teammates safely, since once you shoot this out, you can actually walk into it and you won't take any damage. Friends will take damage, but the damage is pretty neglectable, so even if you see an Ingie with Spinning Death going, don't worry about actually hopping into the Spinning Death, because it can keep you safe, especially from things like Swarmers. Even more so if you're running the Plasma Trail in Tier 5 on the Breach Cutter. And then we've got our final and the newest overclock for the Warthog Auto Shotgun, which is Pump Action. This one is probably one of my favorites, if not my most favorite, that came from Season 5. Not necessarily because it's the strongest for the Warthog, but I just love the feel of it. So Pump Action gives you an increase of damage per pellet, as well as it gives you more pellets, and it also gives you +1 blow-through on the shotgun, which is good because this is the only way to actually get blow-through on the Warthog, in the exchange of reducing your overall mag size, reducing your rate of fire, and reducing your maximum ammo. So you get a more powerful shotgun, but a shotgun that doesn't go quite as far as some of the other ones. This one is actually pretty cool because it does make it so some of the other mods for the shotgun are pretty important. So in Tier 1, I'm going with the fast rate of fire. Rate of fire is actually really good with this one since it makes it just more consistent at closer ranges. In Tier 2, I'm going with the increased ammo. I find this one to be the most useful in most cases, although the other two options can be decent. Increased pellets can help. It can make it so you can one-shot certain enemies or two-shot certain enemies, which is kind of good, but it doesn't go very far. You kind of run through shotgun shells pretty fast, so you want to be running a secondary with a lot of ammo then. And the choke can also be pretty good if you want to be using this at longer ranges, because it is quite consistent at killing enemies if you are going for those headshots. If you're going for body shots, it still technically can do that, at least towards regular grunts, which is nice, but you do need to get good spread for that, so it's not super consistent. In Tier 3, I like going with the larger mag size, but all of them are good in Tier 3. Tier 4, I do take armor breaking on this one, because this is probably the best overclock to take advantage of armor breaking with a shotgun. Damage is still good here, though, too. Going up 1 more point of damage is nice, but armor breaking actually does make this fairly consistent to fight big enemies, like ripping off the armor of Praetorians or guards. It's also really good against shellbacks, so. And then minor adjustments in tier 5, because Turret Whip can still work with this one. It still does a lot of damage, it's still really good, but minor adjustments just makes this one feel a whole lot better. And technically this is still sort of full auto, but you still have to go through the pumping animation every time that you shoot it if you hold down the trigger. It's kind of weird, but it is kind of nice if you need to basically just slam fire the shotgun at close range. For a secondary, I really like taking this with the Shard Diffractor and running it with the Volatile Impact Reactor. This one is quite strong with the Warthog. It's really strong just in general because of the lava that it leaves behind. It can kill little enemies and it can light bigger enemies on fire really easily, which is just more damage over time. It's really good on the Has 5 Plus with the extra swarms too, as well as if you're doing swarm control or any of the higher custom difficulties. Then this one is actually really, really solid. And I really like it with the pump action because this one I can use for just clear amp crowds, and then if things do get close, I can use the pump action, just pick off whatever else is close by. Inji's primaries often get joked as basically secondaries because their secondaries are more or less their primaries with this class, which is kind of true. The secondaries for Injis are pretty nuts, and the primaries aren't as much, but the Warthog Auto Shotgun is a very solid primary option. Tell me your thoughts on the Inji's Warthog Auto Shotgun. How do you enjoy building it? How do you like it? And what secondary do you like to pair with it? And also tell me what weapon you would like to see next in this series. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And if you didn't see my new gunner video, be sure to check that one out. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone!